What is up, my dude and dudettes, and welcome back to TellerTube. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the subreddit r/choosingbeggars. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with my latest videos. And with that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Choosing Beggar surprised by Wave Vodka after giving me $5 for alcohol. Title says it all pretty much. My friend from high school, who my friends and I don't talk to any longer, is the choosing beggar in this story. My friend and I have many more stories about him that I could write about, but basically, he's the kind of guy who would try to upsell cheap beer to people at a party that was bring your own booze, think Bud Light or Miller, or would ask you for $5 if he drove you a half mile. I'm not sure if this post is more choosing beggar or malicious compliance though, so let me know what you think. The story is pretty short, but super satisfying in my memory. So one night, I was at his place with a few of my friends. We were 21 at the time, so Choosing Beggar asked me to drive to the liquor store to pick up some alcohol for him. After asking a few questions like, is it for everyone, or what do you want? I was handed a $5 bill and told to get whatever this will buy, preferably some vodka. Since I was already running out, I decided to swing by to pick him something up. I told him that $5 wouldn't be enough to get him a bottle, and Choosing Beggar replied with, "I've been there are some things that are $5. So I went with only the $5. When I arrived at the liquor store, I started looking around for vodka. I found the lowest of the bottom shelf brand vodka that was called Wave, and it cost only a little over $5 after tax. I actually got a look from the cashier when ringing it out. Unsurprisingly, I got back to the house, and as soon as the Choosing Beggar saw the bottle, he asked me, "What the heck is this? I gave you money for vodka, but I've never even heard of this brand before." Then he took a sip and screamed, "It tastes like friggin' cough syrup." I replied with, "I told you that $5 wouldn't be enough to cover a bottle." He responded with, "That's BS. You should have gotten me something better like Grey Goose." After telling him that Grey Goose was much more expensive, he couldn't afford it with the money he gave me, he added, "Why didn't you chip in at all? I can't drink this crap." I reminded him that he had specifically stated the bottle would just be for him, and then asked why I would pay for the bottle of Grey Goose if I couldn't drink it. I also reminded him that he still owed me $50 for a bottle of rye whiskey he had stolen from me that I tried to hide from him specifically so he wouldn't steal it. This was a bad habit of his. He mumbled off with, "I'll just buy you a bottle of something later." Spoiler alert, he never did. In the end, I ended up going out to grab some top shelf whiskey with my friends while Choosing Beggar was stuck drinking his cough syrup vodka. While a lot of my memories of this guy are not great, watching his face when he drank $5 vodka was priceless. For those who are inevitably going to ask why I ever befriended Choosing Beggar, it was more of a friend scenario, and we had played together in a band in high school that I left when I went to college. I have some other stories about him that I might write about under different subs too. Hope you enjoyed this short Choosing Beggar story. "What the heck is this baloney? I gave you $5 to get me vodka. I expect it to be Grey Goose." Yeah, alrighty, Chief. Another Bob story, the fence. So Bob and I share a privacy fence, and 2 years ago we had a windstorm blow it down. Typically, there are no rules for who is responsible for repair, but since I had originally paid for the fence, it was mine and I did not mind repairing it. Well, until Bob got involved. I decided to replace the whole thing. It was an old dark brown and did not have a lot of life left in it anyways. But before I can get started, Bob is at our house wanting to know when we are going to fix his fence. I politely remind him the fence belongs to me and that I would fix it when I get around to it. This is not good enough for Bob because of Bob's dogs. For some reason, he thinks I am responsible for his dog having a fence, and this should constitute an emergency on my part. We go back and forth about the urgency of the matter, and he finally agrees to help me rebuild my fence. But I still have to pay for all the materials. First, I demo the old fence by myself without any help from Bob. He conveniently disappears the first weekend we agreed to start the project. He literally shows up as I am stacking the last of the old fence by the street for curbside pickup. We get bulky item pickup in my area twice a year, and I got lucky with the timing and could leave it neatly stacked by the street. Bob sees the stack of wood, and I can see the gears in his head turning. Bob takes a picture and advertises it on Craigslist, then without asking me, he starts moving it all to his yard. This guy spends 2 weeks trying to sell a pile of old fence pickets and missing the bulky item pickup day. Then he finally gives up and decides to drag it all back to the curb in front of my house. We had a word about this, and it was a bit heated at times. My position on the issue was, you wanted the wood, now it is your problem, not mine. We went back and forth a while, and he begrudgingly stacked the wood right on my property line between our houses. The very next day, 2 Mexicans in a truck show up, decide they want the wood, and start loading it up in their truck. Bob sees this, runs out front, and starts yelling at them it is his wood and it's not free. They just throw a few pieces they had in the truck on the ground and drove off. Bob can't stand that someone would get something for free. No matter how much I try to convince him to just let it go, he won't. So I prod him a little and tell him they will just come back when he is at work and take it anyway. My intent being for him to drag it all back into his yard. So what does Bob do? He gets a saw and cuts all the pickets in half and leaves a giant pile of pickets in his yard at the curb. Rather than let them take it for free, he ruins it for them. That pile of wood sat there for weeks before the city cited him and made him clean it up. More on that later. Back to the fence. While replacing the posts, Bob starts questioning where the real property line is. I'm pretty good with where the old fence was, but he is convinced the line is too far on his property and wants to move it towards my house. I checked the survey and the original fence looked like it was built about 6 to 12 inches inside my property, and I suspect he wants to move it another foot over so it's easier for him to get his boat into his backyard. Or maybe he's just being Bob and wants something more. The easy way in my mind to settle this is to find the pins and pull a line between them. Bob gets a crap-eating grin on his face and says that is a great idea, and alarm bells go off in my head. After a little work, I find the pins, and not only was the fence on his property, it was a foot on his property. This is not right. It is not matching the survey that came when I bought the house, and I'm sure I measured it right the first time. Out of self-defense, I hire a surveyor for $400 to come out and verify the property line. The surveyor comes out, and Bob blows a gasket and tries to refuse the guy access to his property and tries to harass the surveyor while he is doing the survey. None of this even fazed the surveyor. He acted like this happened all the time and maybe even paid closer attention given how hostile Bob was acting. It turns out for good reason too. Bob had moved the pins. The fence was not 1 foot on my side, it was 2 feet on my side. Bob had moved the pins. His shed was a solid 1 foot on my property, and given the new lines, it did not look like he would be able to get his boat in and out of his own yard now. That new fence he was insisting I fix, he starts talking about how maybe we could just put it back where it was, and how he was willing to help, and how good fences make good neighbors. It was not enough that I pay for the repairs and do all the work, he wanted to screw me over on the property line too. It's never enough for him. Over the next few weeks, I notified him of the shed encroaching on my property and made him move it. Then I build that fence right on the line and foolishly believe it was over. My insurance company sends me a letter about a claim on the damaged fence. He had filed a claim for the fence on his insurance, then his insurance contacted mine to settle it between the two. My fence, the fence I paid for and built, he is making a claim for. I told him the whole story and sent copies of the receipts. A couple weeks later, I come home from work and all the old fence pickets are in my yard. Bob tells me since it's my fence, then the trash from the old one is mine too. I guess the insurance company denied his claim. During this time, Bob got a citation for the trash in his yard. When code enforcement came back out to inspect again, they knocked on my door and I told them the whole story. The guy was really nice and just walked back over to talk to Bob. I don't know what he said, but Bob hauled the wood off to the dump the next day. We don't talk about the fence anymore, and now his ugly boat is in the side yard where he parks his boat right on the property line. I paid for the fence and survey, and while I picked up a little extra yard, it did not have to be that way, and all of this so Bob could have a fence for his dog. He is still pissed and will tell anyone who will listen how I stole a foot off his yard and how I made him move his fence. I paid for the fence both times, the survey, did all the work, and somehow stole part of his yard. Honestly, I would have been happy to put it back where it was if I did not have to look at his boat anymore, but he was being such a douche over it, I felt like letting him win would hurt more. What? Now this story is just crazy. So Bob wants OP to fix his fence, meanwhile he's already moved the pins so he can have more property. What a sneaky little bugger. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, smash that like button as it would really help me out. I also want to just say a huge thank you to you guys because we hit 300 subscribers. The support on my channel has been great and I really appreciate it. So if you guys want to see more videos, be sure to subscribe and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.